Do you know how many species inhabit the Earth? Studies suggest they number more than 8 million. And if we add the yet unknown species, estimates soar to nearly 1 billion. Yet, among this staggering multitude, there stands but one creature, humankind, alone endowed with the power of thought, distinguished from all others by the faculty of reason. Thinking, in essence, is the ordering of data and information to arrive at truth. Or, as the Free Encyclopedia defines it, the sum of forms and mental processes performed by the human mind, enabling it to model the world in which it lives, and thus to engage with it more effectively in pursuit of goals, plans, desires, and purposes. In short, thinking is the exercise of the mind upon a problem to uncover its solution. Closely bound to it are perception, awareness, sensation, and imagination, all movements of the mind that aid in problem-solving and deduction, a ceaseless dance between the known and the unknown. Thinking itself branches into directions, frameworks of principles guiding the path the thinker treads. Marxist thought, liberal, capitalist, atheistic, Islamic, and others. Each molds interpretation within its own lens, though they inevitably intersect. The Islamic thinker cannot explain a phenomenon without reference to the Creator, while the atheist ascribes it to the blind play of nature or probability. Hence arose the modes of thought: intuitive, critical, emotional, logical, mathematical, and more, summarized into 4 principal kinds: mythical thought, religious thought, scientific thought, and philosophical thought. Take rain, for instance. Mythical thought may see it as the tears of unseen beings. Religious thought perceives it as the work of God. Scientific thought explains it as condensed vapor forming clouds moved by pressure systems, releasing rain through shifts in temperature. Philosophical thought, meanwhile, asks about the essence of this water, its life-giving force, and its deeper place in existence. Notice how these approaches intertwine. Religious thought does not exclude the scientific. Philosophical inquiry often begins with suppositions and reaches conclusions that affirm both science and faith. Mythical thought alone stands apart, rooted in naive and unripe premises, doomed to fail in explaining reality. But what if myth cloaked itself in the garb of science or religion and became the reigning, unquestioned truth? Strangely, in daily life, we employ all 4 modes, often without awareness, to explain phenomena or shape the models of thought we accept. Take the problem of rising prices. We might attribute them to scientific economic causes, to moral and religious decline, to philosophical questions of human greed and knowledge, or even to fanciful superstitions, such as claiming that certain rabbis have unleashed spirits upon us with dark sorcery. Thus, in life as a whole, we navigate with all 4 methods, seeking conviction. Yet errors creep into thought, born of many causes. Haste and judgment without due reflection or sound reasoning. Emotion overpowering reason. Human susceptibility to persuasion and seduction. Fanaticism and rigidity of opinion. Deficiency of knowledge. Selective or biased reasoning. And other influences that, in the end, distort truth, sometimes even turning it utterly upside down. So first, we must cast off the obstacles that fetter thought and embark upon a journey of inquiry with a liberated mind, unshackled from haste, emotion, prejudice, dogma, or any other constraint. In short, we must free ourselves from the mental programming that charted our paths in advance, steering us toward conclusions designed to serve the programmer's purpose. Such programming has taught us to see trees merely as trees, and mountains merely as mountains. Yet, a Russian researcher named Lotus advanced a theory that upends this vision, declaring that we gaze upon the world with veiled eyes, trapped in patterns of complacent thought confined within rigid molds of error. From childhood, we were taught of tropical, subtropical, temperate, and boreal forests. Forests in the United States, Japan, China, Germany, Poland, Costa Rica, Australia, South America, and Africa. But what if this researcher were to tell us that no forests exist upon the Earth at all? His evidence, the trees we now call forests, even in Siberia, are no older than 2 centuries and rise no higher than 30 meters. By the measure of the true giants that once graced the earth, these are but grasses, pitiful echoes of colossal forms denied to our sight, so that we might remain prisoners of habit, blind to reality. The true giant, he argues, endured upon earth until the year 1920. These were the sequoiadendron, the mighty sequoias. Fortune favored us that the camera had been invented before their extinction, and thus we possess images of their massacre, wrought between 1880 and 1920. Their magnitude staggers belief, dwarfing what we now call trees into mere sticks beside their titanic forms. Intriguing, is it not? But do not hurry, the true astonishment is yet to come. You may ask, how can a living being turn to stone? Yet, in the midst of ancient civilizations, tales abound of men, beasts, and plants transformed into rock. Strangely, such legends are not mere fancy. Paleontologists have unearthed abundant petrified remains, human, animal, and vegetal creatures that, rather than decaying, harden into stone over the ages. In the United States lies an open-air museum of such wonders, the Petrified Forest National Park, a vast desert expanse strewn with fossilized trees. But these are not sequoias. They are colossal silicate trees, dwarfing even the sequoias in scale. The prevailing suspicion is that this park is not truly a museum, but a stage, its trees felled and transported there. And to what end? The motive seems plain. The trunks of silica on display are so small as to be incomparable with the true sequoias. What we see are not whole trees at all, but fragments, mere branches, arranged to mislead mankind into believing the silica trees were never colossal, when in truth they were beyond imagination. Consider this. If someone showed you a photograph of a tree stump cut by a saw, and claimed it was a volcanic plateau formed 200 million years ago, you would dismiss him as mad. But what if he showed you instead a picture of Devil's Tower? Would you believe him then? You likely would, for geologists assure us it was formed by ancient volcanic flows. Yet, upon closer inspection, those flows reveal themselves as hexagonal columns of flawless symmetry, as though shaped by design, by intelligence. To believe that Devil's Tower rose by volcanic chance is as fanciful as believing a Ferrari race car assembled itself in the aftermath of an explosion within the factory. Such is the comparison and the bold inference of the researcher. Do not lose your mind, seek instead the image of a tree trunk cut in cross-section. If your memory serves, you surely recall from biology lessons that its very structure is woven of hexagonal fibers. Now imagine stripping away its bark. Would not resemble Devil's Tower when viewed from above? These fibers, moreover, are not perfectly fused, much like the tissues of living plants, and thus fall away freely. They are sheathed in a delicate outer layer, akin to the thin membrane covering living fibrous tissue. And note well, they do not plunge straight into the earth, but curve downward like roots. Such evidence makes plain that calling Devil's Tower a mountain strays far from the truth revealed by careful observation and liberated thought. What we behold is, rather, the severed stump of a colossal silicate tree, its height calculable by a simple formula, diameter multiplied by 20. By this reckoning, the tree stood not 30 meters tall, as with the trees we know, but 6 kilometers. Can you fathom it? Can you raze to the ground all that you have been taught in order to glimpse the truth that was deliberately veiled? And do you suppose this to be a solitary example of the primeval silica trees? Then remove the blindfold from your eyes. Behold the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, another site where 40,000 basalt columns lie arrayed, said to be the frozen legacy of an ancient eruption. How marvelous! By such reasoning, we might just as well declare a hexagonal paved street the offspring of volcanic fire. That is what they have told us, as though none had ever watched molten lava flow, congeal, and harden into chaos. Yet the Giant's Causeway, with its perfect tessellation, mirrors the hexagonal order of Devil's Tower Stump, only laid flat upon the earth, suggesting another felled trunk of a colossal silica tree. So, do you still deem it folly to call these things stumps? Do you believe Devil's Tower and the Giant's Causeway, the only hints of a deception that cloaked from us the truth of the trees? Do not be so sure. They are legion across the earth, and geologists have named them mesas, from the Spanish for table, owing to their flat summits, sometimes dubbed plateaus. But in reality, they are the fossilized remnants of giant tree stumps. Mark the resemblance between tree trunks and these mesas across Australia, Canada, Italy, Namibia, Argentina, South Africa, the United States, Russia, Ethiopia, and Venezuela. This likeness sounds a great alarm in the mind, proclaiming that something is gravely amiss. It is as though our very perception has been programmed to see only what they would have us see, and to turn blind eyes to truths shining as plainly as the midday sun. And remember this, Devil's Tower, merely the 6-kilometer stump of a colossal tree, is but a sapling compared with others. Consider Table Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa. Its diameter stretches 3 kilometers, which by the same formula reveals it to be the stump of a silica tree once towering 60 kilometers high. Imagine, if you can, branches so vast that entire districts could be built upon them. Parks, marketplaces, hospitals, whole communities suspended upon living wood. And yet, of course, the mind recoils. It resists the notion that such mesas were once trees, that 60-kilometer giant strode upon the earth. This, indeed, is why the word apocalypse translates to the unveiling of the curtain. For the true world has been concealed behind a veil of habit by means of a grand and deliberate deception, a worldwide brainwashing, a programming of thought, ensnaring our minds in the cage of taught error and barring us from the path of free inquiry in pursuit of truth. And one last thought before we close this strange inquiry and depart from this land of marvels to yet another realm. We have spoken of trees cut down, yet what of those broken in half? Compare certain mountain ranges with the images of shattered trees, and astonishment will seize you anew. All that you now behold was once part of our Earth's living system, a world fantastical and magnificent, lovelier than anything James Cameron conjured in his Avatar. But some men, desiring to be gods, laid waste to it all. So speaks the author of this singular analogy. But let us suppose, for argument's sake, that he speaks the truth, that trees of unimaginable magnitude once graced the earth. Why then was this truth concealed? Because such trees would testify that humankind itself was once of colossal stature, corroborating sacred traditions that Adam, peace be upon him, stood 60 cubits tall, and that all creation has since diminished in scale. Scientists, of course, dismiss this as impossible. A body of such size, they argue, would collapse beneath its own weight. Gravity would thwart the heart's effort to drive blood to such heights. Worse still, petrification of wood is said to demand 50,000 years, whereas the Stone Age ended barely 10,000 years before Christ. If these mesas are truly tree stumps, then men of prehistory must have wielded vast and intricate machines capable of felling such titans. Yet how could trees towering 60 kilometers have risen upon a globe spinning at 1,600 kilometers an hour? To grasp that figure, recall that Earth turns faster than the swiftest jet conceived by modern science, a machine flown only by pilots hardened through rigorous training, lest the strain of speed rupture their nerves, warp their blood pressure, or drive them into unconsciousness, even death. And yet we fragile creatures whirl with the Earth at still greater velocity, untrained, unprepared, and scathed. If one can accept, without doubt, that a mountain of hexagonal fibers is merely the aftermath of volcanic fire, if such a thing may be called scientific and logical, then why should it seem absurd to believe that darker powers labor ceaselessly to blot out truth, to deform the Earth's true visage, and to bind us in illusion? Awaken. Reconsider all that you were taught in your schools. Let not superstition masquerade as science, nor dogma disguise itself as faith, lest it deceive you utterly. Open your eyes, free your minds, and behold the reality that devils have veiled from you, to serve but a single, sinister design. What design is this? Who are they that shroud the truth and pin our minds like horses in a stable? Why must we break our mental chains, abandon prefabricated concepts, and think freely outside the sterile garment of science that has blinded us from the real? Perhaps, in what follows, the answer awaits.